What moment made you realize you deserved better? For me, it was going into labor at 3 a.m. completely alone. My loving husband, Charles, didn't answer his phone for 6 hours. That was the third time he disappeared during an emergency. The first time was during a miscarriage scare. I was 10 weeks pregnant, bleeding on the bathroom floor, and he was nowhere. The second was when my dad had a heart attack and I had no one to drive me to the hospital. After giving birth, I came home to find him passed out with a needle still in his arm while our newborn needed to be fed. I kicked him awake and said he had to either get clean or get out. He grabbed my hands, looked straight into my eyes, and swore he finally understood what marriage meant. He promised that when I got sick or old, he'd be there for me the way I had been for him, no matter what. And for a while, I believed him. For 6 months, it really looked like he was changing. He went to AA meetings every day, got a job at his uncle's warehouse, took over the night feeding so I could rest. Every Tuesday at group, he'd talk about how I saved his life. I was even asked to speak at a meeting once, and he held my hand the entire time. Then the little cracks started to show, like they always do. He missed my birthday, claiming he had to work a mandatory event, but it turned out to be optional. He completely forgot our anniversary, then brushed it off saying I shouldn't need a date to feel loved. When I got promoted to charge nurse, he sulked for days and made comments about how lucky I was to focus on my career while he was stuck in recovery. I later found out from a mutual friend that he was telling people at AA meetings that I used his addiction against him, that I was controlling, always checking up on him. The truth? I hadn't asked about his whereabouts or touched his phone in months. When I got the flu that winter, he avoided me and slept on the couch, saying he couldn't risk missing work. He didn't bring soup, medicine, or even a glass of water. When I brought it up later, he said I was being dramatic over a little cold. Then I found a lump in my breast while showering. I panicked and called out to him, but he was too busy playing video games with his headphones on. I booked the biopsy myself and reminded him 3 times. He still forgot, saying he had to work. The results? Stage 2 cancer. When I told him, he looked pale and said anything medical triggered his recovery. I said I understood, but it felt like swallowing glass. My mom moved in without asking. She took me to every chemo session while Charles always had an excuse to be somewhere else. I kept wearing my wedding ring, even when my fingers were swollen from the treatment. The same ring I wore during his entire rehab while I worked nonstop to pay for it. After 8 brutal months, I beat cancer. Charles threw a big party and made a whole show online about standing by his warrior wife. He showed up to only 2 appointments, and both times stayed in the waiting room scrolling his phone. 3 years passed. I had almost forgotten the sound of his promises. Then one night at 2 a.m., I got a call from county jail. Charles had relapsed, gotten a DUI, and wrecked our car. Slurring his words, he begged me to bail him out. And then he actually said, "You know I was there for your cancer." I laughed. Not a bitter laugh, but a real one, because the audacity was wild. I told him, "You were there for Instagram. My mom was there for cancer." Then I hung up. I rolled over and went back to sleep next to my new husband, the oncology nurse who held my hair back during chemo. Charles lost his job and his apartment. His own parents wouldn't take him back because he'd stolen from them before. He ended up in the same shelter where I used to volunteer back during his first rehab stint, and honestly, I didn't care. But a few months ago, I got a call from his lawyer. A lawyer I didn't even know he had. Turns out Charles had been building a case against me for years. Screenshots, voice recordings, twisted versions of every fight.